Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Really Useful Podcast, a podcast where we revolutionize all podcast books and such. My name is Segura Diesel. I'm here with my good friend
Bonnie, also known as Teapot7, and welcome to episode 14 of the Really Useful Podcast.
Yes, we are. Yes, it's good to be back, everybody. So, yes, as you can see right here, we are basically taking a look at a book that has been beloved by pretty much all Thomas fans that basically grew up either around like the early 90s to, let's say, maybe around like early to mid 2000s and such. Because pretty much at this point everybody knows at least, the trilogy that this book is known for and everything. And usually it gets like, really good high reviews for good reasons and such.
Yes, it's one of the greatest trilogies in the Thomas fandom.
And this book also introduces a new type of engine that basically is going to play a huge role, and not only in the Railway series, but even in the TV series. Basically, when the TV series gets made and such, basically the introduction to diesel engines.
Yes, that is correct. And this was the first book to introduce a diesel engine because, according to Wilbert, Eric Marriott, the editor for the books, actually requested Wilbert to introduce a new diesel character in order to keep the series up to date.
Yes.
And Wilbert was not very happy about that.
Yes, because I believe at the time he was one of those people that basically didn't see the use of diesel engines and didn't think that the world was going to need them and such, and thought that like steam engines were going to stay forever and everything.
He was one of the ones that hated nationalization. If you guys don't know what nationalization is, it's basically when a company gets absorbed, it gets brought into the public, and it becomes like a government-owned company. And Wilbur was not a fan of that at all.
Yeah.
He said he was against nationalization, and he was also against diesel engines, as far as I'm aware.
For a while he was. But then it's actually very interesting because, like, in the very next book, we get introduced to another diesel engine, and basically Wilbur pretty much, I guess you could say that the next book kind of changed Wilbur's mind a little bit on diesel engines, because pretty much, that diesel engine in the very next book is very friendly and not, and pretty much the exact opposite to this diesel that we're going to be reading today in this podcast.
Yeah, I noticed a pattern here. Most the ones that are mostly assholes are the ones that are brought into trial into the Northwestern Railway, whereas in the Skarloey and later on in the Arlesdale Railway, they're just very friendly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, that's also going to be happening too. Literally in the season finale too, where we're going to have another diesel engine that was also on trial. And at first, pretty much, let's just say she wasn't the most friendly diesel engine around. But I think she's one of the few rare diesel engines that actually does manage to stay on the island and actually does, change their attitude a little bit for the better.
Yes, and I think I know who you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, this is the first book to introduce Diesel, which we're gonna talk about in a moment. Mm-hmm. And I got a lot of history for you guys today, so brace yourselves.
so pretty much, sit down, take out your pencils and notebooks, and be sure to write all this down for the test tomorrow.
What test? I never said there was a test.
I mean, you never know. We do have the quiz section on the YouTube community tab, so if we wanted to, we could.
I never used it before, honestly. Maybe
honestly, I've only just recently used the community tab. Like, if I just want to get an opinion on, like, hey, just pretty much opinion on, like, hey, should I do this in my video or should I just say no?
I should give it a shot someday for let's say the third annual New Year's Eve live show if we ever decide to do it this year.
Yeah. We can give it a shot. Anyway, so back to the history lesson.
Yep. So today we're gonna be starting with a little bit of background history before we get into the history of this book. So after Wilbur published 8 famous engines, supposedly, because I still haven't found any claim to confirm my speculation that Eight Famous Engines was supposed to be his final book, like we mentioned in the previous episode. But the publishers did not want him to stop and urged him to continue, and so he did. But however, he wanted to do more than just write books. He wanted to do some spin-off types of stuff for the series, like let's say maps and cardboard cutouts of the engines.
Yes.
And
Correct me if I'm wrong, but was this also the time, or was this before? Because I know that like he did one little book where it was just basically a car and stuff. Was that?
yes, this was the year that it was published, actually, 1958.
Oh, interesting.
I was going to talk about that in a moment. I'll mention it in a moment.
Okay.
So like I said, Wilbur wanted to expand upon the railway series. He wanted to do stuff like a map of the island of Sodor, and he also wanted to make cardboard cutouts of the engine, so the kids can make their own Gordon or James or Thomas, that type of stuff. However, Edmund Ward was against the idea of producing spin-offs. He didn't like the idea, but he died in 1957, and so they went ahead and did it anyway.
It's kind of a little dark joke right here, but I can just imagine, like, picture Wilbur, when he pitched that idea to Eric and everything. Eric was just like, "You'll do that over my dead body," and then a couple of hours later, he was dead, and Wilbur was just like, "Well, you said I could do it over your dead body, so."
No, it was Edmund Ward, not Eric Marriott.
Okay.
Eric Marriott actually pushed the idea of the spin-offs, but Edmund Ward was like, nope.
Same difference.
So in 1958, the Reverend W. Audrey's Railway Map of the Island of Sodor was published, and that is the map that if you have the Thompson Tank Engine complete collection, that's the map that is first shown when you open the book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was the first map that was issued back in 1958. And it's very hard to find nowadays. I've been trying so hard to snag a copy of it, and it's very expensive. It was later redone in 1971 for another story for another day. Later again in 1983, then 1992, and most recently in 2014.
Huh, interesting.
And so yeah, the map was basically like as the name implies, it's a map of the island of Sodor that tells you where exactly each story took place. For example,
So basically, let's say let's say that in Thomas and the Trucks and everything, when you're reading a story about Thomas, going on the adventures with the trucks and everything, you can actually use the map to basically follow along, where Thomas was going from the beginning to the very end when he ran away down in Gordon's Hill and such and slid right into the buffers and everything.
Yes. As far as I'm aware, it only went up until Four Little Engines, that map, because it stopped at, I think it said the engines are made and repaired at Croven's Gate. So that map was published in 1958 for a price of 2s and 60. I don't know what that is in British money.
I would look it up, but if you want, maybe when we get into the post editing in this, if one of us wants to look it up and convert that to
US dollar.
At least I should say both today's US dollars and even today's British pounds or whatever they use and everything.
Yeah, I could do that when I get to the editing later on.
Alrighty.
So later on in 1958, Wilbur published the story about a little car called Belinda the Beetle,
and I believe was that basically his car personally, or was that a friend's car or something,
from what I remember reading in the Thomas Tank Engine Man, he and the kids were on a road trip and they saw three beetles. They were counting how many beetles they could see. Cars, not the insect.
Don't worry. I know which part you're talking about because I believe I know we had them in I know we definitely have them in the States today, and I'm pretty sure they probably were also around by the time Wilbur made that book as well.
Yeah, and unlike the books, which were short, Belinda the Beetle was actually a novella. Yeah, which was a little bit longer. And if you thought the Railway series had illustration problems, Belinda the Beetle also fell victim to that. He hated the illustrations of the first edition, hated them. And so when he wrote the sequel, Belinda Beats the Band, he requested that John T. Kenny illustrate it.
I'm kind of curious. Who illustrated the first one? Do we know, or?
Let me see if I can find it here. Oh yeah, here it is. Ionicus. I think that's like an illustrating company or something. Let's
Oh,
see if
okay.
I'm right.
So now, can you imagine if the person that did do the first illustration for the Beetle one was actually was actually the original Delby? Pretty
Oh,
much
oh no
pretty
no no,
much.
let's see. Oh, here that's this is his real name. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Joshua Charles Armitage.
Oh, okay.
That was his. That's the guy that illustrated the first volume.
Okay. So
So
so he basically was the original Delby too, but worse for Wilbur.
much worse. It says here, the Little Red Car's adventures were flamboyantly illustrated by Ionicus. That was his nickname. That was like
Oh,
before
okay.
usernames were a thing back then.
Yeah.
A prolific artist and illustrator closely associated with books by P.G. Woodhouse, R.G.G. Price, and Ogden Nash.
Mm-hmm.
Wilbur Audrey asked to see the roughs for Ionicus's illustrations in much the same way as he was then seeing all the illustrations for the Railway series. The artist, however, refused to submit his pictures for comment, and they were published without the author's approval.
Ah, I see.
So pretty much so pretty much Ionicus like fuck that. It's
But but
how it is how you get it. So Wilbur Audrey disliked the illustration so much that by the time he wrote the sequel, like I stated earlier,
Mhm.
he asked that John T. Kenny be the illustrator for it, and well, he illustrated it.
and it did much better.
Yes.
All right. So
Well,
well,
the novellas didn't do very well because the engine story outsold them completely,
yeah.
for good reason as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Belinda was forgotten pretty quickly.
Yeah, I can imagine on that. Yeah.
I never read the novella, but I'm curious to give it a shot to see
Yeah. Same here. Same here. I have heard about them. Although this is the first time I heard that Wilbur made a sequel to it. I pretty much thought he only just made one book of it and that was it.
no, he actually wrote two sequels. I mean one sequel. Sorry, one
Oh, okay,
sequel.
it's
My
just one
bad.
sequel. Okay.
One sequel, my bad, yeah. Let's see here. Belinda Beats the Band opens with a dramatic flourish that demonstrates Wilbur's increasing confidence as a storyteller.
Hmm.
The lorry swerved, bumping over the grass verge, then swung back to the road. The driver mopped his face. That was a near thing, he exclaimed. Lucky that car was red, or I wouldn't have seen it on time. That's just an example of Belinda.
Yeah.
But yeah, Belinda.
Yeah. Like just reading that little paragraph right there, you could still pretty much tell that that pretty much Wilbur's writing style with Belinda was still pretty similar to that of something you would see in the Railway series.
Yeah, but I think one of the reasons Belinda didn't do very well is because it's a car, and I can assume that at the time cars weren't that interesting like trains were
Yeah,
back then.
because I mean pretty much at that point, not everybody owned a car, but pretty much good, pretty much like a good half of the country, or at least a good majority, owns cars and such. And I mean, if this was made in let's say 1940s and such, I can imagine maybe the series might do a little more popular and everything. But nowadays, cars are just one of those gadgets where we pretty much take it for granted nowadays. Don't really see too much of an appeal for them that much anymore.
Unless you count Pixar's Cars, the movie.
Pretty much, yeah, that's true.
Very
Although to be fair, I know the car series could also be pretty mixed with a couple people here and there.
yeah. I'm not one of those people. I actually love Cars, especially Cars 2, which gets a lot of hate.
Yeah,
But yeah, like I said, Belinda didn't do very well, and we'll get back to Belinda eventually.
but now back to the
And
Railway series.
we're now back to the Railway series. So, 1958, Dug in the Diesel Engine was published, and Wilbur's personal dislike of diesel locomotion undoubtedly colored the characterization of Diesel, and the smooth talking engine is revealed to be to be a thoroughly bad lot. Sorry, I can't speak today for some reason.
Nah, that's okay. That's okay.
Significantly, Diesel is the only engine character without a personal name. He is simply called by the name of what he is.
Yeah, actually, yeah. You know that is really interesting when you think about it, because yeah, pretty much outside of Diesel and Diesel 10 later on and everything, those are pretty much the only two diesel engines that pretty much are referred to like pretty much what they are instead of just their actual names and such, which is
Yeah,
pretty interesting because it kind of makes me wonder if Wilbur, secretly hoped that this would be the only time he would get pretty much this would be the only time he would ever be forced to write diesel engines into the series and everything. So I pretty much just decided to name Diesel as he is, a diesel engine and such, and just like I said, hope that like he never had to put another diesel into the books again. But again, once we get to the next set of series and we start to see Wilbur slowly changing his tune a little bit on diesel engines and everything, that's when like they would start getting like names and such. Although it is also interesting because we will get to see, like you just mentioned, other diesel engines that are on trial, like pretty much spoilers, like a Spam Cam or like the diesel from Stephanie the Bluebell engine and everything.
oh
Pretty
yeah,
much.
Boulder. People, most Thomas fans call him Boulder, so I'm gonna call him that.
Thomas fans call him Boulder. I know the TV series sometimes call him as like a Class 40 and everything. Those are pretty much, and yeah, that's pretty much another example of like diesel engines that don't really have names. They're pretty much are either given nicknames after what they've done and such, or they're just pretty much referred to as by a number and such.
That's correct. Like I said, and I have here about what Wilbert had to say about writing Diesel in because he was very hesitant. Like I said, it says here the Railway Series' editor Eric Marriott was conscious of the fact that more and more diesels were being seen on the railway tracks of Britain, and thought that in order to keep the series up to date, it would be a good idea if a diesel were to join the Fat Controller's engines. Marriott put this suggestion to Wilbert Audrey on several occasions, and for a long time, the author resisted. I kept on being pestered, recalls Wilbert, and I eventually agreed to introduce a diesel. The engine which appeared in Duck and the Diesel Engine was not, however, quite what Eric Marriott had been expecting. The Fat Controller introduces Diesel, who has arrived on Sodor for a trial period, and details Duck to teach him about the yard. However, the new engine quickly displays an arrogant attitude.
Yeah, I mean, we're
Uh,
definitely going to be seeing that in this book, and like I said, it's going to be her running theme in this series and such.
Yes, because because after this is basically just it keeps doing a synopsis of the stories, which we're gonna talk about in a moment. So
Yeah.
I think that's about it for the history portion.
Alrighty
So
then.
without further ado, let's get this show on the road with the stories.
Yep, we're starting with Domeless Engines, and I believe you went first last time when we did Percy Takes the Plunge and everything, correct?
Let's see.
Because
Yes, I did.
yeah. Because usually with like even story books and such, basically you handle the first story and I handle the last story. So, all right, so that means it's my turn to handle the first story of Duck and a Diesel Engine, which is Domeless Engines. Alright, so Domeless Engine starts off with people from the Railway Society coming on over to the Fat Controllers Railway to basically take a look at the engines and everything. And then pretty much while they are looking at the engines, taking photographs and everything from them, Duck gets introduced to the engine that pretty much brought the Railway Society over here in the first place, City of Churro. Duck's driver tells him, pretty much gives him the info that the City of Churro was the first engine to pretty much go 100 miles an hour and everything. And pretty much after encouraging Duck to go and try and talk to him, Duck does, and pretty much he and City of Churro become very fast friends, almost kind of like a student mentor type of vibe. Because pretty much after City of Churro's visit, pretty much Duck starts to get a little, and pretty much this will be a theme in this book as well too. Duck starts to really feel proud of his Great Western Railway and heritage and everything. And then pretty much when City of Churro finally leaves and such, and Gordon starts badmouthing him, Duck pretty much stands up for the City of Churro and everything, and basically tells Gordon off that, City of Churro was the first engine to go 100 miles an hour, and Gordon's just like, who cares? He's got no dome. That's all I got.
Never trust domeless engines. They aren't respectable.
They're not respectable. I never boast, but I say 100 miles an hour would be easy for me. And then pretty much, yeah, he pretty much just goes off and everything. When Duck takes some trucks to Edward Station and tells him what Gordon has said, Edward's just pretty much like, Duck, You do know that in this story, Gordon's gonna get his karma in the end, right? So don't worry too much about it, okay? Oh look, here comes Gordon right now about getting some karma. Bye, Gordon. Pretty much. That's pretty much that scene in a nutshell. And yeah, pretty much Gordon's going really fast and everything, so fast that even his driver and fireman are having a hard time trying to slow him down. And when Gordon realized, something's going on with his boiler and everything, he's like, oh shit, maybe I better do slow down. But then too late, once they get to the viaduct, they are met with a very strong wind. So strong that the wind somehow was able to lift off the loose dome and pretty much just throw it away into the water below and everything. And now Gordon is bald, my eyes. Alright. And yeah, I can pretty much, that's probably what the passengers are saying to themselves every time they see Gordon coming into the station and everything. And pretty much, I will admit, it is kind of, to be fair, it is kind of a little hard for me to decide which one I find more funny and such. Like, do I find it funny that, like, the passengers are the ones pretty much, laughing at Gordon's misery, or do I find it funny that, the trucks are the ones laughing at Gordon's misery and everything?
I personally find the passengers laughing at him more funny because
yeah,
I also like the trucks laughing at him for good reason because they're trucks. They're gonna laugh at him.
I mean, yeah, they're trucks. They're literally jokesters to begin with. Whereas, like with passengers and everything, you kind of don't expect too many passengers to laugh at like engines' miseries and everything. So I mean, like, it is very unique and pretty much it is pretty much funny for that reason alone. And then pretty much when Gordon gets into the shed and everything, that's when someone my money is on Duck that says this. And pretty much tells Gordon that, like, never trust domeless engines. They aren't respectable and they're big dumbasses. And pretty much that's domeless engines in a nutshell. So, domeless engines, or Gordon and the Famous Visitor, however you guys want to go by with this story. This is a very fun story, honestly. This is a real good one to introduce Duck and the diesel engine and such. More so for the fact that City of Choro pretty much is the reason that, this book even exists in the first place. He's pretty much the reason that, pretty much as we're going to see in the next few stories, that Duck is very proud of his Great Western heritage, and it's definitely going to get carried out throughout, pretty much throughout the whole book and everything. So this story is definitely important for what it is and such. Although I will admit right here and that I can understand why Britt and David most likely skipped the story to begin with and everything, because pretty much after that, the rest of the story pretty much doesn't have really much to do with Doug. It's just more have to do with, like, Gordon trying to prove himself that he's better than City of Churro and everything. And of course, Gordon being Gordon and such, he gets it, he pretty much, embarrasses himself in the end, and that's pretty much it and everything. Which is not to say that, it makes it bad and such and everything, because pretty much, the whole scene of, like, Gordon getting his, much deserved karma and everything and such, like I said, it is pretty funny, and, I do like, the scene, I pretty much do like the scene of, the passengers, laughing at Gordon's misery and everything, and, pretty much, John T. Kenny's, pretty much, illustrations really does capture a funny scene with, like, Gordon losing his dome real good and such, so...
yes, again, he's gotten a lot better, much better.
Yeah, much better, definitely. Like I said, especially with the engines and the backgrounds and such and everything, he's done, like, really much better since the last book and such.
I definitely agree.
Yeah. I don't really have too much to say on the story, honestly. It's just pretty much, pretty much how it sounds and everything. Gordon just gets, really jealous, thinks he could do better and such. He gets humiliated in the end, and that's really about it. So, in terms of the TV series and everything, I will say that the TV series also does a really good job on capturing, pretty much adapting the story, as close as they can without pretty much, making changes that, like, they can't really do, they can't really tie into, like, pretty much the intro to, Duck and Diesel and just seeing how they already did that in the previous season. So
I will say that I prefer the intro to Gordon and the Famous Visitor than this story, honestly.
I do a little bit as well too. I mean to be fair, I think I do. Okay, so what I will say is that I think this is one of the I think this is one of the couple times where, like, both the TV series and pretty much the Railway series both have some, like, really good ideas and really expand upon them very well. And pretty much, yeah, the intro is one of them. Like, because pretty much in the book version and everything, you can really tell that pretty much after the engine's visit to England and everything, they have definitely gotten a lot more popular and definitely have gotten a lot more recognition. Now, like I said, this pretty much this intro, not only kicks off the first story pretty well, it also kicks off it pretty much also kicks off Duck's pretty much kicks off Duck's whole character trait and such once the other 3 stories starts and such. Because like I said, when Duck really talks to City of Troll, you really do get that feeling that they have really become best friends. You could definitely feel and see the way that City of Troll's visit pretty much shaped Duck to who he was, or I should say pretty much who he is. Going forward, and not only in this book, but like the future books coming forward and everything, and that's a really important part right there. And then pretty much in the TV series, the TV series also does a really good job because with pretty much all the shots of the people coming around to see the city of Churro and everything, and pretty much the engine like in City of Churro, and see and just pretty much getting to know him and see that he's actually quite a friendly engine and such, which actually does play the scene of Edward also being a City of Churro really well as well too. Probably a little bit more better if I'm being honest and such. And then it also goes with the same thing with the ending too, because I will admit I think in terms of the ending, I will go with the TV series a little bit more, and mostly because I just love the way how Britt and David pretty much shows the scenes of Gordon slowly going back into the shed after knowing that he lost his dome, he's never gonna get one and everything. And then pretty much you just see this music slowly playing out on how Gordon's just crushed. He's just really hoping that no one's gonna be in the shed. He's gonna be the first one in the shed. And then later in the scene, you see all the engines are lined up waiting for them. And then pretty much you get this pretty much Micah Jr.'s own version of a wah wah little music as soon as Gordon enters the turntable. That is just really perfect. That's just perfect right there.
I could just imagine when hearing that music, I could just imagine Gordon being like, "Oh my god,
oh crap, oh crap! Is it too late for me to go back to London?"
Never trust doveless engines. They aren't respectable.
Prick. Anyway, but yeah, so like I said, I don't have too much to say in the story. It's simple, it's fun. So honestly, this is one of the stories where where honestly I could actually see myself both reading the story and even watching the TV series version of the story over and over again. So with that, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I think I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 as it deserves.
Okay, so I don't argue with your points there. I think this is a funny story, and you pretty much nailed everything I was gonna say. But before I give some thoughts, I want to take you guys on a little bit of a history portion, because this story is also based.
Go right ahead.
Because this story is also based on an infamous debate that is still going on to this very day.
Yeah, it's pretty much one of those nerd debates. Pretty much almost like a who shot first from Star Wars and such.
Yeah, who shot first with the hand thing, which I hope ends soon, because that thing is bullshit.
It's never gonna end. It's never gonna end. It's never gonna end. And because to be fair, we're humans, and basically, if there's one thing humans are good at, is pretty much debating and arguing about pointless shit.
Yeah. So the debate in question is who went 100 miles an hour first, City of Churro or Flying Scotsman, and to this day, there is little evidence. There's a very few evidence to support that City of Churro went 100 miles an hour, because at the time that happened, there was they didn't record it very well, and I believe there wasn't a dynamometer car back then. Dynamometer car is like a coach that measures the speed of an engine, if you're curious to know. So here's what I found regarding City of Churro's run back in, I think, 1905 or 1904. Yeah, 1904. Sorry, June 1904.
Go ahead.
So here it says, on one occasion when the special experimental tests were being made with an engine having 6 feet 8 inches, couple wheels hauling a load of approximately 150 tons behind the tender down a grading of 1 in 90. I personally recorded a rate of no less than 102.3 miles an hour for a single quarter mile, which was covered in 8.8 seconds. exactly 100 miles an hour for half a mile, which occupied 18 seconds, 96.7 miles an hour for a whole mile run in 37.2 seconds. Five successive quarter miles were run respectively in 10 seconds, 9.8 seconds, 9.4 seconds. This I have reason to believe to be the highest railway speed ever authentically recorded. I need hardly I need hardly add I need hardly add that. Fuck, I can't even speak.
It's okay. I mean, to be fair, what you're doing right now is pretty much a little look back into like how, it's pretty much a little look back onto how I usually record my, it's usually how I record my videos and such for like script, for like scripted stuff and everything.
Yeah,
You,
this
you,
is
you, you
this is
be,
the issue. This is the issue I run with. This is the issue I run with whenever I record something from a script.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like at first you're doing well, and sometimes you'll get that one moment where like you get every sentence down perfectly, and then pretty much once you're ready to record the next one, you're almost getting there, but there's always that either one certain word or one certain phrase where you get that tongue twister and just like, fuck, and
I
you
have
gotta
to,
do it all over
then I
again.
have to restart. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has happened to me. That's why I dislike editing audio for that reason.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, I need hardly add that the observations were. I need hardly add that the observations were made with the utmost possible care and with the advantage of previous knowledge that the experiment was to be made. Consequently, without the disadvantage of unpreparedness that usually attaches itself to speed observations made in a merely casual way in an ordinarily passenger train. The performance was certainly an epoch-making one, in a previous trial with another engine of this in a previous trial with another engine of the same class, a maximum of 9.6 miles an hour was reached. See Roos Martin, October 1905. So that pretty much
So pretty much
that's
kind
pretty
of
much.
confirms that like pretty much there's no really easy way to tell if pretty much one of the engines actually did reach 100 miles or pretty much if they had any like extra help in like reaching that to begin with.
Yeah, there have been doubts over the record center on the power of the locomotive and some contradictions in Rose Martin's passing times.
Mm-hmm.
However, his milepost timings are consistent with the However, his milepost timings are consistent with the speed of 100 miles per hour or just over. The
Mm-hmm.
latest research examines the evidence and uses computer simulation of the locomotive performance to show that a speed of 100 miles per hour was possible. But John Heaton and Bill Hemstock, its substitute research concluded the engine probably peaked at just under 99 miles per hour around the milepost 168. So basically, it's still up for debate as to whether or not he went 100 miles an hour. Meanwhile, Flying Scotsman, on the other hand, aka Gordon's brother,
Mm-hmm.
let me see if I can. On on November 30th, 1934, Flying Scotsman became the first steam locomotive to reach the officially authenticated speed of 100 miles per hour or 161 kilometers an hour, while hauling a light test train between Leeds and London, and the publicity conscious LNER make much of that fact. Although the Great Western Railway's city of Truro was reported to have reached the same speed in 1904, the record was unreliable. So pretty much, the evidence is still not. There's just not enough evidence to prove that that city of Truro went 100 miles an hour. So pretty much, I stand with a Flying Scotsman, and that's gonna make some City of Truro fans hit me with some pitchforks right now.
Yeah.
I think the story makes it clear that Wilbert falls into City of Truro side. So pretty much, the story is a fuck you to me for saying the Flying Scotsman was the first.
Pretty much.
So, but I still like the story nevertheless. Like,
Yeah.
if he did this intentionally as a fuck you to the ones that say Flying Scotsman was the first, it's still a good story regardless. Honestly,
It
because
is.
it's fun to see the big asshole himself, Gordon, get karma for his words.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, and also this is something that I didn't notice until a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the very first illustration, you know where?
Oh yeah, yes, I know what you're talking about. Yes. So yes, this is another fact that's kind of well known a little bit. in the Railway Series fandom. But yes, in the very first illustration, we see Wilbur Audrey, pretty much as a man standing right next to Wilbur Audrey as as he's pointing Duck to him. Pretty much it's been proven that that basically that's the original Dalby standing right next to Wilbur Audrey as Wilbur Audrey is pointing, Duck to him. Pretty much just saying like, you see that? That is how you're supposed to draw a duck, you fuck up. And he smacks him upside the head.
I don't know if Kenny did this on purpose or it was just a coincidence, but if he did it on purpose,
actually, honestly, pretty much honestly, I can imagine Wilbur being like, psst, hey, Kenny, you want to make some extra bucks? I want you to put the original Darby right here in the first illustration and make him more of a fuck up. Here's $20.
If Kenny did it intentionally, he did a good job because wow,
He did, yeah.
That is comic gold. That is comic gold right there. Like that's how you're supposed to do it.
You fuck up.
But yeah, I don't have too much to say on Domeless Engines because you pretty much nailed everything I was gonna say, and
Yeah.
But I will say that in terms of the humor that it comes to the story, I think both the TV series and the book version capture it very well. But if I had to choose one of them, I will definitely pick the book one because I just find the passengers laughing at Goring is so unique and so strange that it's really funny.
It is. It definitely is. It definitely is.
Plus that face he has.
Yeah.
Just like
yeah. He just pretty much. Yeah. Gordon's just pretty much. Let's see how it is. Stop laughing at me. I know I'm bald, okay?
So Duck in the not the so Domeless Engines for me it's a 9. I love the story a lot.
Alrighty. So far you're one. Pretty much you're 1 point higher than me in terms of the ratings. So, alrighty then. Well, up next is your turn with pretty much kicking off the start of the Duck in the Diesel trilogy with Pop Goes the Diesel, a pretty much fan favorite. So, okay, so take it away.
Yep. Pop Goes the Diesel. So we pretty much start after where Domeless Engine left off, and Doug is feeling very proud of being Great Western after City of Churros visit, and being proud of his heritage gets into his head very much that he basically works very hard, keeps the yard in order, and the passengers finally stop grumbling.
Pretty much.
But his ego gets out of control, saying like there are two ways of doing things: the Great Western way or the wrong way. I'm Great Western, and
Don't we know it? Shut up.
And the three big assholes get tired of his ego.
Pretty much, yeah. They're getting tired of his ego and being told that, like, what they're doing is wrong and everything. Yeah. Doc pretty much is turning into like one of those students where pretty much like they get like A+s or like pretty much they're the teacher's pet and such. And pretty much whenever the kids are doing something wrong, he always likes to rub it in their faces and such. That pretty much he's better than all of them.
Can I pause this for a second and say this?
Go ahead.
I hate teachers' pets. I really hate teachers' pets. I really hate favoritism in students.
Yeah. Yeah, which, does happen, not only just in schools, but also in workplaces and sadly in family homes, too.
In college as well. In colleges happen as well. And I really hate favoritism. Really hate that.
Yeah.
Because it kind of shows that you're not doing very well and others are getting rewarded better than you.
Pretty much, yeah.
So anyway, after Duck's egotistical self gets out of control and the three big assholes get tired of his bullshit, a few days later, a visitor comes, and this visitor is a Diesel, simply named Diesel.
Yeah.
The Fat Controller brought him to the island for a trial, saying that he needs to learn, and so he asked Duck to train him on how to run the yard. This new visitor tries its best. It is kind of seems friendly at first.
Yeah,
kind of seems very friendly.
Yeah. It pretty much seems friendly at first. He tries to butter up Gordon, Henry, and James' egos and everything. Pretty much saying that like, oh, I'm delighted to meet such famous engines, and pretty much Duck is the only one that's just like, I'm keeping my eye on you.
I am delighted to meet famous engines.
But Duck seems
what I was about ready to say. Oh, hello, Barney. I didn't know you were a diesel engine.
I am not a dinosaur. I am the new diesel engine that comes in.
I'm
I
trying
just want to
to.
give people some hugs, okay?
I was just trying to
I know.
make my Willie Rushton interpretation of Diesel.
Yeah, I understand.
But Duck sees the new visitor as a with skeptical eyes,
Yeah.
and so when they go to the yard to start the training session, Diesel tells Duck that
You're worthy, said Topham Hatt. Things I need to learn. We diesels don't need to learn. We know everything. We come to a yard and improve it. We are revolutionary.
and Duck pretty much assumes that by being a revolutionary, he's like, okay, if you're a rebel thingamy, then get my trucks, please. Pretty much leaves him to do the work. Uh,
Pretty much. So yeah, so yeah. When you think about it, Diesel really fucked himself. Pretty much fucked himself over here, because pretty much after making a big statement like that and everything, he pretty much Diesel was just asking to pretty much set himself up for a fail.
yeah, that was a shot in the foot. That was a shot in the wheels, I just say.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So much later, Duck comes back to pick up the trucks, and he manages to catch Diesel trying to pull some old trucks that hadn't been used for a long time. However, the reason why they don't move is because the trucks had their brakes on, and Diesel was trying so hard to move them that eventually eventually after trying so hard, the couplings broke and they derailed because of their
Yeah, and also and also the gear jam and the sleepers as well too. And
Yeah.
pretty much the brake snaps as well, and pretty much Diesel runs over some buffers. He pretty much crashes into a building, then a school, then a airport and such until he goes into the sea.
Oh, if Diesel does it again, was like that, honestly.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, to be fair, the world's strongest engine kind of did
I mean, it kind of did
us a
something
favor.
similar. He just only crashed into buffers and landed in the sea.
Well, he fell into a ship, in other words, and the world's strongest engine.
Yeah, true.
So that episode kind of did us a favor in bringing our idea to life.
Pretty much, yeah.
So after the trucks come off the rails, so the couple is breaking, Diesel goes forward, and Duck, who saw everything, laughs his ass off at him.
Pretty much,
And-
yeah.
And then Duck comes to take some trucks away, and so Duck comes to take the trucks away, and then basically thanks Diesel for arranging the trucks, and Diesel tells him, "Don't you want this lot?" But Duck says no, like no. And Diesel gets so angry at him, say like, "I taking all this bullshit for you? Why didn't you tell me about these trucks?"
And then Doug was it? And then Doug pretty much makes a good comeback and just pretty much telling Diesel and that he thought that Diesel were supposed to be revolutionary and know everything. So pretty much he never bothered to tell him in the first place because pretty much Diesel knows everything, and pretty much he should have assumed that what kind of trucks Doug was supposed to take in the first place.
Yeah, so basically Duck says, "You never did. Besides, you were having so much fun being rebel, whatever it was you said. Goodbye." And Duck goes away, leaving Diesel furious at him.
Yeah.
And to make matters worse, he has to clean up the mess he did.
And pretty much
And the final nail in the coffin. The final nail in the coffin comes when the trucks begin to sing. Trucks are waiting in the yard. That could every Diesel. Show the world what I can do. Gaily roast the Diesel. Waiting out he creeps about like a big red weasel. When the world runs up, pop goes the Diesel. And that basically leaves him infuriated at the trucks.
And then pretty much ever since that day, Diesel wanted to murder Duck.
Pretty much. Or did he? We'll have to wait until the next
Or
story.
did he? Well, I mean, technically, when you kind of think about it, he almost did.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, to be fair, whether that was his intention or not, he still almost did in the end.
Pretty much. So Pump goes to Diesel. I'm gonna say right now, I fucking love this story.
Yeah.
I fucking adore this story. It's funny from beginning to end. I just love Diesel. I swear, Diesel can be a funny character if he's used correctly.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? It is pretty interesting, but Diesel only appears twice in these Railway series books and such.
Until he comes back years later for a spin-off book, but that's another story for another
Yeah,
day.
but yeah. Well, actually, that's what I mean. Like, when I say he only appears twice and such.
Yeah, and this is the only time he appears in Wilbur's books.
Pretty much, and pretty much honestly, like, pretty much, like, it's easy to see why Britt and David, or even like why this character took off the way he did and everything, because pretty much like his introduction, real you could just tell from the introduction and the way he's introduced, he is vastly different from any other characters we have seen up until this point. Because I mean, like, up until this point, like, because pretty much, yeah, we had characters like, Gordon, James, and, Sir Handel that, like, are all arrogant and think, they know everything and such. But here we got a Diesel, well, at least, Diesel named Diesel and such, which, again, creative name. But pretty much, like, pretty much, like, right off the bat and such, like, if you were someone like Duck and everything, you would probably also feel very skeptical about, an engine like him coming into the yard and already just buttering everybody up right off the bat and such. And
yes, I was gonna say this. I was gonna say this.
Go ahead.
The personality wise, at the beginning of the story, he seems friendly. He seems friendly.
He does seem friendly, which, like, again, like, if you're someone like, the big engines and everything, you probably wouldn't think too much of it and such. You would probably think, like, Diesel's just a very friendly guy and such, and just messed up one time and everything. But
but when he gets angry, it's basically like taking Gordon, James, and Henry, put him in a blender, and you get Diesel.
Pretty much, yeah, because yeah, like I said, after that introduction, and we get to see a little bit more of Diesel and everything, you really do get the feeling that, like, pretty much, yeah, this is like, an arrogant level we have not seen yet in the Railway series, to this day and everything. So, when you think about it, Diesel really is, like, the Railway series' first idea of, like, what a villain could be like for, the Railway series and even just Thomas in general and such, because, again, while this trait is not present in the Railway series, you do get the feeling that, like, Diesel's just pretty much saying that, like, diesel engines are going to be, the way of the future and everything. They're pretty much, better than steam engines in pretty much any way possible and such. That's why, that's why in the beginning when he said that, pretty much what he was telling Doug and everything, I don't really need to learn everything. Oh, no.
Now that you reminded me, now that you talked about this, I just remember something interesting about all this.
Go ahead.
This is a sad fact, by the way. This book was published the same year that the Duck's real life basis that had the number he has on the Railway series 5741 was withdrawn and scrapped.
Yes, I believe you're right, because I think I have heard of something like that before. Yes.
Yes,
and not just like Duck's twins and everything, but pretty much I think this was also but pretty much I think, like, by the mid to late 50s is pretty much the start on when pretty much a majority of steam engines were getting ready to be scrapped forever.
Yes, and it's sad. It's very sad, but
yeah, I mean, like, honestly, honestly, just to see Wilbur Audrey again, even though this is not what, like, Eric had in mind when he said, like, he wanted a diesel engine to join the Fat Controllers Railway and such. I can still pretty imagine that Wilbur probably tugged a lot of Railway series enthusiasts' hearts and such, especially those that were alive, and were there firsthand to see pretty much diesel engines taking over what was once a steam engine population railway back in their day and everything.
Yeah, and I think this is around the time when the scrapping was starting to become a thing, and it wouldn't be until the 60s where that took effect pretty quickly.
It did. It really did took effect. That, like, pretty much, when the 60s came around, there's, like, pretty much you start to see abandoned railways, or just, like, railways in general that are only made for, like, pretty much, for steam engines that actually did survive and are planned to just pretty much, keep them alive for however long they need to and such.
Yeah, it's still a sad fact that tons and tons of steam engines were scrapped, including entire classes.
Pretty much, yeah, and like I said, that's good. That's going to be a very important theme once we get into, like, pretty much at the very beginning of season 3. Once we get to it.
Yes, this is only just the beginning. This book is kind of the beginning of the end for Steam.
Yeah, and like I said, the way Wilbur pretty much captures the attitude Diesel himself has for like how pretty much how important he thinks his class are really does show like pretty much the attitude and mindsets other people had at the time, and like I said, it is really interesting to basically now that we have more context and such about like how Diesel was made the way he is. He really does make a lot more stronger impact than that pretty much you probably already did have for those that either grew up with the Railway series books or even grew up in the TV series long before when like long before like after steam engines were pretty much gone and diesel engines were pretty much the only type of diesel engines available at that point.
Yeah. One thing I should mention about Diesel's basis. Can you guess how many of Diesel's class were built?
How many of them were built?
Yeah. Can you guess how many of them were built?
If I had to take a guess, I would say probably like around the hundreds or so, maybe thousands.
Nope. 996 of them were built.
Okay. Okay. So what? Okay. So what's pretty close to 1,000, but yeah.
Yeah, because they were so successful that they just keep making more and more of them, and believe it or not, 100 of them are still in service as we speak.
Yeah, I believe that.
And as for Duck's bases, the Pannier tanks, 863 were built. So pretty much goes to show that pairing them together was kind of a brilliant idea in a sort of way.
It was honestly, and honestly, it is pretty sad that pretty much Andrew Brenner or like anyone in the team from the latter half of the CGI series didn't really take advantage of like pretty much trying to pair up Duck and Diesel just one last time to see if like pretty much how would they have felt about each other now versus like how they felt each other back then, like way long ago in the classic series. It definitely would have really been a really interesting episode if it got another at least just one last Duck and Diesel episode and such. It would have been so interesting.
Yes, like they could have put their differences aside and end the original show in a good light.
It would have, yeah, it really would have.
But unfortunately, the Brenner era suffered from character standardization as well. We're
Pretty much,
basically
yeah.
we're basically I'll give you an example.
Go ahead.
James is a
Yeah.
good example. One episode he might be in his jerky self, Another episode he might be kind, and then he goes back to being a jerk as usual.
Yeah, yeah. I basically heard of that. Yeah.
Which gets annoying pretty quickly because can't you decide on a personality for the character?
Personality? What's that?
But yeah, we've gone off track from the story. So
Okay.
back
Yeah.
to the story.
Yeah. Pretty much. I just want to say that like pretty much just to end off this. But basically, what I'm saying is that like it's pretty easy to see why Diesel was pretty much a fan favorite. And like I said, this might be his only book that he was a part of and such. But honestly, it's pretty much these stories and also the TV series and stuff combined is the reason why Diesel really stuck around. Pretty much stuck around much longer, and eventually almost became like both sort of like a main and a secondary character in a sort of way in the TV series.
Yeah, and no wonder they brought him back because he
Yeah. Because like I said, you could pretty much make a lot of stories and pretty much a lot of stories where Diesel, pretty much does his like little antagonist ways and everything. And pretty much just tries to be better and everything. But then like again, much like with Gordon, he just pretty much makes a fool out of makes a fool out of himself.
pretty much. So going back to the story, I think this is one of the funniest Railway series stories ever.
Yeah.
To the point where I've heard it so much that I'm burnt down on it.
I mean, yeah, like this story is pretty much a classic for a reason and such.
I'm burnt down on this story because I've heard the Willie Rushton narration so many times because it's so damn good. I love Willie Rushton's Diesel voice. I love it to death.
Yeah. Honestly, like, it's a little tough to say, but like, I could go back and forth between either Rushton or Ringo or even Carlin's voice for Diesel. Like, all pretty much like all three of their voices for Diesel in terms of like Railway series or classic series alone are pretty much good. Like, they pretty much like they each capture Diesel's personality real well.
Yes, definitely. But I'll be honest, my favorite Diesel voice is a tie between Willie Rushton and Michael Angeles.
Good morning. I hope you're ready to do
Good
some
morning.
homework today.
Yeah,
I
well,
need
they
help.
set up on headset me. I'm hope you are pleased to see me. I'm here to jump some driftly tires
I
and
hope you are.
trucks.
Yeah, I hope you are pleased to see me today. I need help with this math homework right here.
Yeah, classic,
Yeah.
classic Michael Angeles. So I really love my favorite part of the story is when Diesel's trying so hard to pull the old trucks out of the siding, and I'll be honest, the TV version is the best one when it comes to that because of that
Yeah,
music
pretty
captures
much.
the scene perfectly.
Yeah, pretty much. Although I will say, if you're watching the TV series version, you're basically just listening to the audio. Don't if you're listening to the audio, be very mindful when you listen to George Carlin's audio on that little scene.
And be very
Yes.
it also happens in Willie Rushton's narration. Ooh, we can't.
Don't pull
We
that
won't.
hard. Giggity. Yeah, so yeah, make sure you listen to Ringo Starr's narration.
Yeah, but listen with caution.
Listen, yeah. Listen with caution and make sure your parents aren't around.
So Dark and the so I so to make so long story short, I love this story and I love the dynamic between Dark and Diesel and it's such a funny story.
It is. It really is funny. Honestly, I think what rating you're going to give it. So, do we want to go on 3 on like what rating we're going to give this story? Because it's pretty much probably
Yes,
gonna be
here
the
we
same
go.
as okay,
One,
so 2, 3,
3.
10,
10.
out of 10. Yeah.
There's no
Yeah. Because pretty
question
much.
about it.
Yeah, because pretty much you pretty much nailed all the points right there too. Like again, like this story is a classic for a reason. This was always one of my favorite stories as a kid, next to like the very end of like the Duck and the Diesel trilogy and such. Pretty much just like you said, just seeing Diesel, trying so hard to basically make a name for himself, but ultimately he just ends up making a fool of himself, and pretty much you see like the humiliation that the Diesel is really just going through. Just seeing him, really getting furious the more and more he tries to, just pull those trucks, or pretty much just at least trying to make them move. Yeah. And everything, so yeah.
It gets more funny the more times he tries.
It does. It does get more funny and everything, and pretty much, yeah, like you said, both the TV series, especially with like the music and even the shots that like Britt and David was able to get for the scene, just really makes it's really the reason why that scene is still memorable to the way it is and everything. Although it is a little bit of a shame that we never did get to see Diesel shot forward and everything, because even as a kid and everything, even as a kid and everything, I was a little confused on why Diesel was backing down on the trucks and such, like cause pretty much like because pretty much I also thought that like did he pull away, or actually honestly now that I think about it, I think one reason you can probably say that like the reason why the Diesel was pushing back on the trucks, because we do see like pretty much one of the trucks coming off the rails and such in the TV series after the gear was jamming a sleeper. So I guess you can make the argument that like pretty much Diesel had to wait until that truck was cleared away, and then he can back up and try again and such.
It does make sense if you think about it, honestly.
Yeah. And then pretty much like we said, that music in the end, the famous Pop Goes to Diesel song, again, it's a classic for a reason and everything.
Fun fact, that's actually Mike and Junior singing, but in high pitched.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, if you slow down the recording, you can actually hear their voices. I know Mike and their voices because Junior has a higher vocal range.
Yeah.
Whereas Mike has a lower range, so
pretty much of a like lower, almost kind of deep range in a way.
Yeah, so basically that's the truck singing is basically Mike and Junior singing.
And then pretty much just like whatever other narrator was like singing that song that day.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think
Although I will say Ringo did it the best.
Yeah, yeah, same here. Which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think also in the George Carlin when George Carlin re-narrated that episode, I think you can still slightly hear Ringo's singing in that episode. Can you?
Um, if I do recall, I know that only happens in Thomas's Christmas party.
Okay. All right. Okay. What's your share on that one? But
Yeah, I'll have to go back and check to make sure.
All right, all right, and all right, and like I said, I'm pretty sure like someone in the comments will probably tell us, we'll probably confirm that for us and everything.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I can't really think of too much other things to say because, like I said, this is basically where we get to see Duck and Diesel's dynamic really shine and everything. And like I said, it's a real shame that we never really get to see it all that much ever again and such. Like. Especially more so in the classic series, it's kind of a little bit of a surprise that that pretty much Britt and David didn't want to do that much with them pretty much afterwards, because the only really time we ever get to see Doug and Diesel interact with each other after the trilogy was just Diesel does it again, and that's about it. So
can we talk about that episode a little bit? Because I was always a bit confused when you reviewed that episode.
Oh, what, the Diesel does it again?
Yes.
So, I mean, like, okay, the only reason why I gave it a meh as I did was just more that, I mean, like I said, the episode's fine. It's not a bad episode per se. There's, still some good laughs and everything. It was just kind of a little bit predictable is what it was and such.
Okay, so basically it was because it was basically it was because it was just the story was the main issue.
Pretty much, yeah, because like it's pretty much one of those where like you kind of know that like Diesel's probably gonna be sent away anyway, so.
And surprise, surprise, that's what happens.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the plan.
Although to be fair, the more I'm thinking on it and everything, I do realize that maybe that rating I gave it was a little bit harsh. So, so you know what? I think I might actually bump that rating more to like a 6, cause like the more I'm thinking about it and everything. There's nothing really about an episode that's really all that bad and such. I guess maybe that like I was probably like trying to follow a little trend back then or something. I'm not really sure, but yeah, like the episode itself is not really all that awful per se. Like I don't really hate it.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's not that bad. Though, believe it or not, that wasn't supposed to be the episode that Diesel was going to return.
Yeah, I did hear about this. I'm pretty sure we're also going to, mention this when we get to that book. But yeah, apparently originally, Thomas and the evil Diesel, or at least the naughty Diesel, was supposed to be like, the baseline for, Diesel's return and such. And pretty much, when Britt read it and everything, she was just kind of like, I honestly, I kind of just want to make Diesel just be more of a villain and such.
Yeah, because you get to think about it, that story basically shows that Diesel still has a good side on him.
Yeah, pretty much and such, and like again, we're kind of getting a little ahead of ourselves and everything, but it's pretty much one of those like double-edged swords where it's just kind of like. I mean, on the one hand, it definitely would have been really cool to see, that episode from the book, to see that book, being adapted into the TV series and actually see Diesel actually being a main character, and it definitely would have been interesting to see how, how would, Britt, David, and later, like, different writers would have written Diesel if they have kept that, basically they have kept that, story and basically give Diesel, a little bit of a redemption story and basically make him to like probably not necessarily like a flat out good guy and such, but at least like but at least like he definitely would have been a lot more better. He definitely would have had like a better character development and such that probably really would have been interesting to work on and see like how much more can he grow as a character and such.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see, if that story was adapted. But I believe the contract ran out by the time that story was published, because that book was published in 1987, and that was a year after season 2 aired.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a mix that like, the contract was running out, and pretty much Britt and David were slowly, more free to like, do their own sort of stories, not just have to be bound by like making sure that the episodes are strictly from the Railway series and nothing more.
Mm-hmm. So
such.
I think so I think that's about it for Duck and the Diesel. 10 for us.
Yes, so right now that means
I
my
mean,
rating
not
is
Duck and the Diesel, not Duck and the Diesel. Pop goes to Diesel. My
Pop
bad.
goes to Diesel. No body. We're not done with the book just yet. All right, we still got 2 more stories to go.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, my brain messing
It's
up with
okay.
me.
But yeah, so far, yeah, we're still 1 point ahead of each other. I still got an 18. You still got a 19 out of 40 and such. So far, the book is looking very good and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty,
Yep.
so up next we
Good.
got, we got is Dirty Work. So, alright, so pretty much picking up where the last story left off. The ducks. So a bunch of school ducks came out of the pod and everything, and also started saying and basically really killing Diesel and everything.
Okay, so the ducks, quack, quack, quack. Look at this kid, ducks.
And then pretty much Diesel looks at them and is just like, you know what? I'm gonna start my own version of Duck Hunt right now. But no.
No.
So yeah, here's the real plot. So pretty much picking up where the last story left off, the trucks pretty much still ridicule and humiliate Diesel over his fuck up in the last story and everything. That pretty much when Duck comes back, he's actually pretty horrified and pretty much honestly, he really actually does stuck up to Diesel, which there's actually a little moment I do want to touch on a little bit, because even though that Duck was pretty much skeptical about Diesel in the last story, pretty much Duck was still willing to give Diesel another chance and such. Like, pretty much he did a really good thing and sticking up for Diesel when, he was being bullied and everything, even though, this was the same Diesel that pretty much ridiculed Duck and pretty much basically, gone off a whole segment about basically how, Diesels are much more superior than steam engines and everything. But Duck still has, a good sense of morals in him that, he basically stuck up for Diesel and apologized for the way the truck's being rude to Diesel and everything. So that's actually a nice little moment right there, and that's actually one of the few things where the more you think about it and everything, it really does show on the kind of character that Duck is and such, and that just because he may be skeptical of you, or even that or even if Duck might think that his way is much more better and such. Pretty much if he sees the little guy or even a new guy pretty much getting picked on and everything and pretty much being bullied and such, he will still stand up for you. And pretty much, honestly, I think you could chalk that up to pretty much pretty much the same way on how Duck was being treated the first time he came to the island of Soda and such and everything. So like I said, it's actually a real good moment right there for Duck to do. Anyway,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just saying, Duck was willing to give him another chance, but as we'll see in a moment.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So pretty much. Yeah. Even though Duck was willing to give Diesel another chance, Diesel pretty much still has that hatred for Duck. Thinking that Duck is to blame for the mess up that he did previously. And pretty much again, this is another really good moment right here. But Henry was the one that stuck up for Duck and said that Duck's not really that type of engine to pretty much even if Duck doesn't agree with the way a certain engine thinks and such, or at least pretty much might think different of you, or at least is at least skeptical of you. Duck's not really the type of engine that wants to set engines up for a fail on purpose and such. Because, like I said, Diesel was pretty much the one that was pretty much wanting, or at least asking to fail in the first place, when pretty much he refused to have Duck show him around.
He pretty much shot himself in the wheels, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. And then pretty much and then pretty much just what Henry was saying to Diesel, that just because pretty much just because the engines have their differences doesn't mean that they basically want to set him up for a fail. It's not purpose or anything, or pretty much they want to. Yeah, well, okay, yeah, maybe that's not the right way to say it and everything, but I mean, you kind of get what I mean in the end anyway.
It's not you. I'm just laughing at that comment because
yeah,
we'll see in a moment.
Yeah, pretty much and such. Yeah, so yeah. Anyway, pretty much after that, Diesel really still hates Duck to the point where he really wants to see that guy away and such. And again, possibly murder, we don't know. That probably was not his intention and such. But we do know he basically wants to banish Duck to the Shadow Realm and such. So pretty much the way he does that is that he pretty much goes to the trucks, and basically makes up some lies and everything. Basically telling the trucks that, you know, what Duck said to Diesel about, you know, Gordon, Henry, and James. That pretty much he tells the trucks, you know, hey, don't tell the big engines, but like, you know, if you tell the big engines, then I mean it's gonna happen anyway. So, and then pretty much, yeah, the Ducks tell, you know, the big engines what Diesel has told them about, like, okay, it's a little confusing. So bear with me here. So, all right. So the trucks tell the big engines about what Diesel said to them, about what Diesel said to them, about what Duck said to Diesel and everything. So, yeah, there you go. Hopefully your brains didn't break right there with my sentence just now.
Ow.
But pretty much, yeah. So when the trucks tell, you know, the big engines about what Diesel said to them, that's pretty much, you know, all three big engines are pretty much furious at Duck and thinking, you know, trying to come up with a reason why Duck would do that in the first place. And once they found out, and once, you know, once they made their own little reasons or at least theories as to why Duck would even do something like that to begin with, they were just basically like, you know what? Let's all kill him. and then pretty much when Duck comes back from his work and everything, the three engines are barring his way from the shed. Pretty much the same thing that Percy and Duck did to the big engines the very first time. Which honestly, like, I did not pick up on that subtle little continuity until like years later. And I'm just like, oh, that's actually pretty clever. Good on you, Reverend Andre. Good on you. Yeah, when I think about it and everything, yeah, pretty much the big engines are just basically giving Duck a taste of his own medicine, which is actually pretty it's actually pretty a good plan right there on their parts. And pretty much while the drama is going on, Diesel just watching in the background, just being like, good. Let the hate flow into
Did you see? Did you see the illustration where the three engines are blocking his way and Diesel's there like laughing his ass off?
Yeah, pretty much just like good, yes.
It's I can just imagine him with a Palpatine voice like, good.
Let the hate flow into your bodies.
Let the dark side of the Force blow into his face.
I mean, technically, yeah, blow into his face, ram him off the rails. and then pretty much, you know, so Top of Hat or the Fat Controller comes in, just being like, all right, boys and dirties, why are you fighting now this time? And then pretty much, you know, the big engines tell their reasons, saying that, like, you know, Duck was basically calling them names and making Trunks laugh at them. So Top of Hat turns to Doug and gives his side of the story, and Doug pretty much admits, you know, he does not know what's going on. He definitely did not spread those lies in the first place, thinking that, like, you know, maybe someone set him up. And that's when, you know, the Fat Controller turns to Diesel, and pretty much, you know, Diesel tries to cover his tracks, no pun intended. And pretty much, you know, tries to pretend that, like, he also knows nothing. But he is a little afraid, especially when the Fat Controller says, I see. And pretty much another subtle hint right there that, like, you can kind of tell that the Top of Hat is just like, I'm smelling some bullshit here. So again, we can agree and disagree all we want on this, which I'm pretty sure we're probably going to discuss this in depth. But pretty much in order to, like, you know, quell the drama and everything, the Fat Controller pretty much has Doug, you know, work with Edward just for a little bit, just until, like, he could get things sorted out. And Doug is just like, all right, sure. And pretty much, like, pretty much just taking a little bit on, like, you know, a sad story of Henry, but probably a little bit more darker too. Well, actually, I should not say dark. I should say more sad. It's a better word for describing this. But pretty much we really do get like a very like conclusive, pretty much to be continued ending on you know, Duck just, you know, going away with Diesel, you know, smirking with triumph. And honestly, pretty much even as a kid, when I saw this episode the first time in the TV series, it really did grab me. It really did grab my attention. Even now to this day, every time that I look at that scene, especially with the way, you know, the camera was slowly zooming on, like, you know, Duck going away and Diesel just slowly going back in the shed, they really captured that ending very perfectly, in my opinion.
And with Duck in tears, like, as you wish, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, you know, again, you know, both Ringo and George Carlin really captured that moment very perfectly.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, with dirty work and such, this is still another good story. This is actually a really good, you know, middle section to the Duck and Diesel trilogy. It does a really good job on basically picking up where the last story left off and pretty much setting off, like, both the drama and the action you know, the trilogy is pretty much starting to pick up and such. You know, this is something I never really thought of too much, but this is one of those stories, like, this is one of those books where it really does feel like an arc and such. Like, it really does feel like, these three stories really does feel like a trilogy in a sort of way and everything, because pretty much like the last couple of other books and such, and even I mean with an exception of like a few books like Thomas the Tank Engine and Troublesome Engines and everything, most of the other stories are just pretty much stories that honestly can really serve as like pretty much their own episodes and such. I mean to be fair, yeah, there are like a couple stories where you are gonna need like a previous story, or at least you're going or at least you need to read a previous story in order to understand like basically to understand a certain story in the book and everything. But even then, like, you could pretty much just read any books, or at least read any story in the Railway series just fine. You're not really gonna get lost all too much about like what's happening and like certain pretty much what's happening like certain stories or in certain settings and everything. Whereas pretty much like in this book, you really do need to read like
Yes.
pretty much all the stories just to get an idea on like what's happening, because you really do get a feel like a sense of connection that that pretty much these story just pretty much with the way these stories are structured and such.
Connections, connections, connections.
Pretty much, yeah. But yeah, like I said, again, this is another real classic story in a way that like, it's being handled and such. It's really good and such. Like, I really don't have too much to say per se, because I mean, it's
But
not
I
a story
do.
that's just a classic and such. I just basically read it, over and over again. I can't really think of too much I can offer and such.
But
You
I
don't-
do.
well, actually, go ahead. Did you wanna kick it off instead for a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah,
Alright, go
I'll kick
ahead.
it. I'll kick it off. Sure.
All right, go ahead.
So I want to start by saying that I just find it kind of strange that the three big assholes believe the trucks.
Yeah, this is discussion. Actually, there's one discussion I was waiting for to start with everything. Okay, so yeah, like I said, I will still give it to you, and I will still give it to the others that feel this way, and that pretty much, yes, it does feel a little odd or strange that big engines will take the trucks at the word and everything, saying that like this is basically what Duck said to them and such, and I basically just believe all of that and everything because yeah, like I said in the beginning, Henry was one of the engines that did stick up for Doug when Diesel was accusing him for like basically making him set up for a fail on purpose and such and everything. So it is a little strange that that pretty much the big engines would suddenly believe the trucks and everything, that Duck was spreading lies about them or calling them names. But at the same time, up until this point and everything and such, we also still have to keep in mind that at the very least, especially in the very last story and everything, Duck was also not winning himself any points as well. For being pretty much like you said, being egotistical and letting the whole Great Western thing get into his head and such. That pretty much thinking that like he's better than everybody else. That pretty much is not too much of a stretch, or at least that like or that at least I can see why big engines would be mad at Doug and everything, because because like I said, pretty much like because pretty much even then like up until this point, I think we can safely assume that Doug is still not on friendly terms with the big engines, especially with like pretty much how they interacted with him the first time he came into Sorter and everything. So
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense. It does make sense.
yeah,
That does make sense. My bad.
pretty much like I said, like you're kind of also putting too much faith into thinking that these three dumbasses are smart to begin with. But anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, when you were doing the synopsis, I kind of noticed that. What was the thing that Henry said? We engines
Pretty much he said, we engines have our differences, but we never talk about them to the trucks. That would be
Okay.
disgraceful. Yeah, disgusting, despicable.
Says the three assholes that believed that and later on they believed them.
Yeah.
Oh, the hypocrisy.
Yeah, which again, like it's kind of a given with these three assholes to begin with. So,
Yeah, I think that's about it for when it comes to
well, actually, did you also
discussion.
want to talk about because something we also talked about off screen as well too? Did you want?
Oh
to
yes.
Yeah, about like the Fat Controller, handling the situation and everything.
Yeah. The Fat Controller handled the situation well for the most part. because he of course he did the right thing at first. He got both sides of the stories to listen, and well, and well, at the end, he's like, something's not right here. So while he gets things sorted, he sends Doug away, and it kind of seems like Doug lost the battle, but it was just but after talking it with you,
Yeah.
I kind of get it.
Yeah. Because originally, that like, so basically, what happens? I like, we were going on a little debate on what's the fact controller actually, punishing Doug. Did he actually believe, or at least, or at least, was kind of a little weak in that. And that, like, he was taking, Gordon, he was taking, the big engine sides, and basically, just basically indirecting, punishing Doug into like, basically having him work in it. Which station? And pretty much I just come in saying like, pretty much, defending, Stop Hat's decision because, like I said, both in the book and even in, the TV series, especially again, not just so much on how, Wilbur wrote pretty much wrote the words I see, but pretty much, like, if you listen closely to, like, all three narrators, like, Willie Rushton or Ringo Starr or George Carlin, just a way to deliver that I see. You do really get the sense that, like, Shatobov knows there's more to the story and everything than, like, what the engines are telling him. So pretty much I don't think that, like, pretty much I myself don't think that, like, he was sending Duck away as a punishment. He was more like just sending Duck away just so, like, he can get the situation taken care of. And he knows that, like, if he, and he knows that, like, pretty much if I, like, he drops it or, like, tries to get the big engines to be kind to Duck and everything, he might have another situation with, like, what happened to Edward, where, like, the big engines will still harass him and everything because, they still believe that, Duck purposely made fun of them and everything. So pretty much I can imagine that, like, the reason why he sent to Edward Station is because, like, it's pretty much, like he said in the book, he knows that he pretty much knows that Edward will help him out. He knows that Edward, will cheer up Doug when he needs it the most and such.
Yes, and that's one thing I love about Edward. Like Edward believes in someone.
Pretty
So
much,
like
yeah.
when they're feeling down, he's like, I know you can do it. You can do it.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's about it. And I love this story. I just say I don't
Yeah.
just because the problems bother me. That doesn't mean I don't like the story because I do love the story. Because because you think about it, this story is becoming more and more true as the generations have gone on.
Yeah, sadly it has and such, yeah.
Defamation has become a thing, a very common thing now.
Pretty much not just information, but like, spreading like, false stories or rumors in the hopes that, like, pretty much you just want to get, like, that one person you really hate, in massive trouble and such. Some people do it just more for the trouble, probably not realizing probably not realizing the consequences. While pretty much others that pretty much spread the false rumors in the first place probably do want to see that person getting not just humiliated, but, like, let's just say pretty much just make their lives a living hell, to put it somewhat nicely.
Mm-hmm. And it's been happening a lot. Like recently, we saw with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Like Amber Heard was saying that Depp was abusing her and all that stuff, which was untrue, and
Yeah.
Johnny Depp came out on top.
Pretty much, yeah.
So that's a good example.
Which again, some people are lucky in that situation, others sadly not so much.
Yeah, sadly. But yeah, like with that said, I also really love this story. And oh wait, you were the one that you were first. So go ahead.
Originally I was gonna give this the story an 8 as well. I was gonna give the story an 8. But the more I think about it and everything, the really minor complaints we have with, like, the trucks and everything, they're not really all that bad, to be honest. And honestly, like I said, I think the story does a really good job on, like, not only continuing where the last story left off, but also setting up again the very last story coming up real next. So you know what, I'm gonna give the story a 9, honestly.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with giving it a 9 as well.
Alrighty, so again, you're 1 point ahead of me, which you think is gonna happen in the very end. But yeah, like I said, I got a 27 out of 40. You got a 28 out of 40 and everything. So, alrighty, well, I mean, Okay, I mean, okay. Do we want to get this rating out of the way right now for the very last story, or should we still go the normal route? Because I'm pretty
I
sure
mean,
I'm pretty sure
everybody
all of
know.
us know about this last story. It's a classic for a reason.
Yep. Here we go. Three,
Two,
two,
one,
one, 10.
10 out of 10. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, no contests and everything, a close shave. So I mean, if you still want to give your synopsis and everything, go right ahead. It's your turn anyway.
After Duck gets sent to Edward Station, Duck tells him that Duck complains that Diesel told lies about him, and that the three assholes and the Fat Controller, and that he thinks that the three assholes and the Fat Controller think that he's horrid. But Edward cheers him up, saying like, "Oh, don't worry, you're not horrid. Trust
Yeah.
me, you're much better than those three assholes."
They, They still haven't paid me the no, they still haven't paid me the rent. They still haven't paid me the rent money whenever they come over to my fucking house.
But anyway, so Edward cheers him up, and he tells him, "Hey, why don't you help me with these trucks? Maybe you'll feel better after that." So Doc agrees, and he helps Edward with the trucks.
Well, actually, okay. Actually, I'm more thinking of the TV series version of this. Because,
Wait,
because
Oh,
in the book,
oh yes, because that was because I'm more familiar.
yeah. Honestly, this is actually one of the very few stories where actually there is some major change in the book version and the pretty much in the book version and TV series version. I mean, yes, in a way, Duck still helps Edward with the trucks, but he's more shunting them and such, and then pretty much anytime that he is being offered as pretty much he is offered to be a back engine and such is more. It's pretty much more so for the foreign entrance and everything. Not really much on Edward.
Oh yes, sorry, yeah, that's right.
That's okay.
So Doc helps Edward out, and he really enjoys himself. But the three assholes never talk to him,
Yeah, pretty much.
and for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So then one day, Duck was pushing a train up the hill, and then he goes back to do his normal work. While he's going down, they hear a guard's whistle, and surprise, surprise, the train uncoupled from the train. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, pretty much. 20 trucks somehow, break away free, and then pretty much they set their eyes out to murder Duck.
Pretty much, just like,
Hey.
yeah, let's get him, get that asshole.
Chase him, bump him, throw him off the rails, throw him into a house.
I wouldn't be surprised if the engine that was pulling it was James, because like I said, James wouldn't give a fuck if the train uncouples.
I mean, okay. Honestly, if that really was James, that's pretty fucked up from James. If he kind of did that on purpose and everything.
Because think about it. James hates pulling goods trains.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, you are talking about the same James, where where pretty much the last time the trucks uncoupled themselves, he did have to go back and collect them.
Well, yeah, that's true, but
So I kind of imagine that, this was James and everything, pretty much even if he hates Duck right now and everything, I kind of imagine, or at least I hope that he's not that pretty much he would probably at least try his best to chase after the trucks and everything.
Oh yeah, same here. Because like I said, I would have probably murdered him right now.
Yeah, pretty much and everything. Yeah. Because like I said, go ahead.
So the truck, so the runaway is up to, so the runaway starts, and Duck is running away as fast as he can, but the driver has a plan, and so the trucks can catch up to the speed that they're going, and well, the trucks eventually catch up to him, and Duck tries to stop the train, but he can't, and he crashes into a barber shop.
Yep. Basically, Duck had two choices. Either he crashed into a barbershop or he crashed into a passenger train. And also real quick too, I love how in the book version and everything, you have this giant ass engine, pretty much destroying your business and everything, and he just crashes into your house. And what does the barber say to the customer? No, it's only
It's
an
only an
engine. Don't
engine.
worry. I just love how he casually just says, "Oh, it's only an engine. Don't worry. They always break my barbershop every once a week and such."
If I was the one that would be shaved, I would shit my pants.
I mean, I would too. Like, I would too. If a barber tried to hold me down after an engine literally just, bursts into a building, I'm just like, fuck that. I'm out of here. You're not killing me. This isn't worth my $10.
Or $15 wherever you're from.
Or $50 wherever I'm getting from you. Whatever it is, it's still not worth it. You know what? Like, considering how much of a theme this is in like the Island Sorter, how many times has the engine crashed into a building to pretty much to a point where like the people just pretty much brush it off as the people just pretty much like brushes it off as if like a tornado just crashed into their house or something. Because I mean, like, this is not gonna be the only time where like an engine crashed into a house and a person is just like, whatever.
It's only an
it's only an engine. You see them all the time, okay? Man up.
And Duck apologizes for the intrusion, but the barber's so furious again. The barber's
the barber is so you fry my customers and you made me hold them down. And basically you made me hold them down and everything. I wanted you to kill them. Oh yeah,
and then he puts shaving cream all over Duck.
Pretty much. But to be fair, like to be fair, when I was a kid, I thought the shaving cream looked like either like whipped cream or just like one of those butters, kind of like one of those like soft butters that you see in.
I thought it was ice cream. Because the cone he was holding.
I can see that too.
Yeah, so the barber puts shaving cream on Duck as a punishment.
Which is kind of not that much of a punishment, but
it's not a punishment at all. It's just like
I mean, like I say, he's just pretty much angry. Even though minutes ago, like he was just casually saying, "It's only an engine." This barber really has
so much. So time passes and the Fat Controller comes to inspect what happened, and then the barber immediately latches out and saying, like, "I do not like
when engines pop through my walls." They disturb my customers, and I had to hold them down and everything. In fact, I can just imagine the Fat Controller just being like, "Dude, when the fuck did you just run away?"
The Fat Controller's reaction also makes me less like, "I understand your feelings, and will gladly repair the damage because apparently I'm so rich." Now, this engine almost prevented a serious accident.
You could.
It was a very close shave.
And then pretty much insert like the CSI music right here. That's pretty much what the Fat Controller was. It's just like you could say it was a very close. Was on the sunglasses shave. Yeah. Dun.
Then the barber's like, "Oh, 1 second."
Yeah. 1 second, and by the way, that was not funny. My people almost died, you jerk.
So basically, the barber notices the barber gets what the Fat Controller is saying. Then he goes off to wash Duck's face, and then he apologizes, saying, "I'm sorry, Duck. I didn't know you were being a brave engine." And Duck is like, "That's all right, sir. I didn't know that either.
I didn't know that either. I was just scared. I was just scared shitless as you were."
And then the Fat Controller praises Duck for being brave, and then this happens only in the book, so I should say right now.
Go ahead.
He says, "I'm gonna tell City of Truro about your bravery," and Duck feels proud about it. And then the Fat Controller tells him, once you're polished and mended, you're coming home." And Duck is kind of hesitant to go back home because of what happened with Diesel, but surprise, surprise! It turns out the Fat Controller found Diesel out, and he sent him away.
Yeah.
And so the engines apologize, and then he says the engines are sorry and want you back. And so when Duck comes back from the works a few days later, the engines give him a great big welcome to Duck, the Great Western Engine.
And pretty much caused the Fat Controller to go deaf again.
Yep, pretty much. Well, for Charles, this is the first time because the previous two.
True.
because the previous times I was talking about that first, and so I think by the time he retired, he was dead.
well, actually, no. Technically, the first time that happened to him was in A Famous Engines, actually.
Oh yes,
whole,
yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 yes,
hooray, hooray.
yes, yes, yes. This is the second time it happens.
Yes.
So I think we pretty much covered everything we're gonna say about Crochet because this story's a classic. What there is to say about the story hasn't been said.
Yeah. The story is a classic for a reason. And everything. So go ahead, Bonnie. The floor's all yours. The floor's all yours. You take it. You take it away.
So for a long time, this story before Thomas and the Jet Engine experienced a resurgence. In terms of me enjoying that episode, this was my all-time favorite Thomas episode for a very long time. Because I really loved this was one of those episodes that I never saw as a kid until years later when I discovered YouTube. So when I found out that this was the episode where that shaving cream scene came from, I was like,
Yeah.
yes, this is it. I better watch it. So I found it and I fell in love with it to the point where it became my all-time favorite Thomas episode for a while. Until Thomas and the Jet Engine took that spot a couple years later. But to this day, I still love this episode to death. But the story itself, it's still good. Like both the TV episode and the book version are classics. What can I say that hasn't been said about the story? Well, if there's one thing. Well, one criticism I heard about this is that we never get to see what happened to Diesel afterwards.
Well, I mean, to be fair, so Top of Hat didn't, pretty much didn't execute Diesel because he pretty much came. Well, I mean, okay. Well, no, no. I was gonna say that that didn't happen in the TV series, but no, no, it's the same thing here because it does come back in the Railway series. So, I mean, to be fair, at least in the book version, it does offer a little bit more of an explanation as to why did or at least how Diesel got sent away and everything. We're pretty much in the TV series, the Fat Controller is just like, oh yeah, no, I sent him away. I believe you the whole time. I was just fucking with you.
Which was kind of strange.
Yeah. I mean,
but in the book version, he told lies.
Honestly, yeah. Now that we're talking about it, I kind of might take back a little bit about what I said about the Fat Controller in the last story and everything. Cause now I'm kind of wondering if I'm still gonna. I still believe that I still believe he had good intentions to do it, but now I'm kind of wondering if he just kind of did it just to troll both Duck and Diesel.
It's not that far-fetched in the TV episode, I would say.
Yeah, because pretty much, if the Fat Controller knew that, Diesel was lying the whole time and everything, it kind of is not really too much of a reason to send Duck away, to Edwin in the first place, so I kind of, I kind of just feel so Tom and I kind of just did it just to fuck with Duck a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't think I have too much to say though. So
yeah, I don't have too much to say on this. Like I said, it's all 10 for me as well too. Because I don't have too much to say on this episode either. Because like I said, this was one of my all-time favorite episodes. Pretty much as a kid, and pretty much I grew up on the Duck and Diesel trilogy as a kid because pretty much I had Thomas Comes to Breakfast on both VHS and DVD and everything. So pretty much whenever these three episodes came on, Pop Goes to Diesel and Close Shave were definitely one of those two episodes I pretty much loved out of the whole trilogy and everything. And pretty much what really sealed the deal was really that runaway scene because like I said. Both in the TV series, but honestly, I'm gonna lean more towards on the book version for making that runaway scene both very epic, but also dramatic as well too. Because you can really again from the pictures and even just reading the words, you can really feel the tension and the urgency that Duck is going through right now. And just trying to get this train to stop or at least slow down as much as he can before, he gets into, a very major accident where, people's lives could be lost as well, too. This is probably, outside of, Old Iron and everything, this is probably the most action-packed runaway scene we've ever seen from the Railway series up until this point.
Yes.
And like I said, it really shows. It really, again, it's no reason why this accident itself is such a fan favorite amongst, the Thomas fans and everything. It's just really that good on how both it's, written and how it's, even filmed in a TV series.
one of the best crashes ever, and one of the best crashes in the series, I might add.
Yeah, and it really does, like, honestly, the story really does, do justice for Doug, because, like, it really does show him off on, like, pretty much, what Doug is going through right now, and pretty much how much he's both learning and everything, and pretty much how much, pretty much, like, he pretty much, put himself on the line just to save everybody, and it's pretty much no wonder why Shotob had considered him a hero and everything in the end.
And he did, and in my opinion, he deserved that welcome back. He deserved it.
He did. He really did deserve it. And again, I might lean a little bit more towards the book because just the way that, like, John T. Kenny really drew that illustration of Duck coming back, it really did felt like a really good happy ending right there.
And my favorite character was in that illustration. One of the rare times.
Yeah, Toby and such.
No, Thomas was there as well.
Well, yeah, Thomas and Toby and everything, yeah. And yeah, I never realized it until now, but there's a lot of, like, foreign engines in this story as well too. Like, you got a couple foreign engines going up the hill and everything. You got pretty much one foreign engine, about ready to take the passengers and everything. And then pretty much you got, like, some kind of backup forward engine or, like, whatever kind of engine was pulling Duck out of the barber shop.
That kind of leads me to wonder where was the barber shop that Duck crashed on? Let me take a look.
Well, okay, well, we know it's past Wellsworth. If I had to take a guess, I would say that maybe it's on part of a line where, like, it's close enough to the BR Railway, but not super close.
Let me see. It's on... Crosby. Crosby.
Crosby? Okay.
Yeah, CMB Barber is a barber shop at Crosby. It is located next to the MC Bun Cafe. Duck wants to crash into a shop after being pushed by some troublesome trucks. Yeah, so basically it's in Crosby.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I don't really have too much to add on this. Like, again, this is also a 10. This story is also a 10 out of me. So, all right, well, let's get to the final rating. So, in terms of my final rating, I got okay, you know what? Okay, you know what? I'm not really gonna make it all dramatic. I think we all know what grade the story is going to get. I got a 37 out of 40. It's an A plus, or at least an A minus. It's still an A for me, and yours is a 38 out of 40. So, surprise, surprise, it's also an A.
Mine is an A plus.
Mine is an A plus, a very A plus. So, I mean, like, we both gave it a 9 out of. Well, actually, if you want, like, you still give it a 10 out of 10 if you want, but
yeah, cause let's be honest, this book is perfect.
It is, like honestly, like, cause honestly, like, even with, like, Doma's engine and everything, every story in this book, just pretty much like the same way how we felt on, like, Thomas the Tank Engine, and to be fair, even with a little extent of, like, 4 Little Engines and Edward the Blue Engine, all these stories are just really classics for reasons and such.
Even while Dauntless Engines, felt like a separate story to the trilogy that was coming up, it still was a good story, like, really funny story as well.
It is. It is. It's really. It is. It's really fun. Pretty much that's how all these stories were and such. Like, Domeless Engines really did at least set up the intro and everything. It also set up pretty much set up, like, some fun moments first before we got to the really serious and kind of, like, sad moments as well when we got to, like, Duck in the Diesel trilogy. Because, like I said, the intro really did set up on what kind of character Diesel was going to be like, and then when we got to the middle and saw that, like, the dramatic scenes happen again, there's a reason why the Duck in the Diesel trilogies are pretty much fan favorites for a reason. They just work so well. They're just structured really good.
Yes, it's no wonder why they became fan favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think? So what do you think of Willie Rushton? How do you think he did on this book?
Honestly, Willie Rushton, he did really good on pretty much on all these stories. All these stories that, like, he did really good. Pretty much just capturing, like, both, like, the dramatic feel as well as funny moments with, like, Pop Goes to Diesel and everything, as well as, like, A Close Shave or even Domeless Engines and such. Pretty much really Rushton really did step up his game in this book and such. He did a really good job. And like I said, of course, too, when I heard his Diesel voice and everything, I was actually really surprised. I was like, holy shit, you actually gave a different voice for once. And it's actually not that bad.
Wait till we get to Daisy.
Yeah,
wait till we get to Daisy.
Wait till we get to Daisy and wait till we get to Duncan.
Oh, yes. I'm excited. Which, funny enough, is on the next book.
Pretty much, yeah. This is going to be in the next episode. And pretty much when we get to Daisy, that's going to be the season finale as well.
One thing I forgot to mention about A Close Shave, this is in regards to Willie Rushton's narration.
Go ahead.
Is that I love the little song that Willie does, like...
yeah, same here.
That sounds like it. And this is the last time that he actually adds something that is not in the actual story.
Yeah, which is pretty sad to be honest.
It's sad, but at the same time understandable. Though he does it again in one book in season 3, but that's another story for another day.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that book.
So that was Stuck in the Diesel Engine.
This was
In my
really
opinion-
this was still another fun episode right here. Like, I think this is one of the really rare times where pretty much we felt really confident in our ratings, and we still ended up giving the grade the book deserved in the end, from beginning to end.
Yes, so season 2 is definitely so far it's been a fun season, a really fun season, much better than season 1, I might say.
So far, yes. We still got 3 more books left to go, and I do have a feeling that the next book is definitely going to be another one where we're definitely going to give it like a really good grade in the end. The book after that, I do have a feeling there might be some debates happening with that book coming up soon. Yeah, yeah. And like I said, I am definitely curious on like what our thoughts are going to be on branch line engines. So
I am excited for branch line engines. That is one of my that has been one of my all-time favorite. That's my personal favorite railway series book.
well, the only thing I can say is that don't celebrate too soon, because once we get to that book, and depending on how
I am fucking scared. I will say I am.
depending on how you're gonna feel on that very last story, I mean, you might not give that book an A.
We'll see. Cause
Yeah.
I am scared. I am very scared when we get to my personal favorite book.
Just imagine it's gonna be Gordon the Big Engine all over again, and the final book is gonna be an F.
If it turns out to be that way, I'm probably gonna take my laptop and throw it into the wall.
If that turns out to be that way, and that's how Barney knows that everything is a lie.
So yeah, guys, that was Duck in the Diesel Engine. If you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast, don't forget to hit the like button.
But
And if you guys,
if you guys have enjoyed this episode and everything, and still basically want to listen to us reviewing children's books, hit that subscribe button as well.
also don't forget to check out our separate channels, OT+7 for me and Sequoia Diesel for Sequoia. Both channels will be linked in the description below.
But yeah, so everybody, that's gonna do it for Duck in a Diesel Engine and this episode of the Really Useful Podcast. So join us next time, where we're going back to the the Skarloey Railway with a little old engine.
Yep. So anyway, guys, this has been OT+7 with
Sequoia the Diesel.
say thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next week for the little old engine.
Take care, everybody, and bye bye.
See you later, guys.